The walls are finally closing in on Meghan Markle, and this time, there's nowhere left to hide. After years of carefully orchestrated silence, Trevor Engleson, her first husband and the man who witnessed her ruthless ambition firsthand, is reportedly preparing to break his silence in the most devastating way possible. Sources close to the Hollywood producer reveal he's had enough of watching Thomas Markle suffer in isolation, while his daughter continues her relentless character assassination campaign against anyone who dares to cross her path. This isn't just another celebrity tell-all brewing in the wings. Industry insiders are whispering that Trevor has been quietly documenting evidence for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. That moment appears to have arrived as Meghan desperately scrambles to salvage her crumbling brand with her Netflix holiday special, frantically trying to present herself as the picture of kindness and domestic bliss, while her past catches up with her in spectacular fashion. What makes this revelation particularly explosive is Trevor's motivation. Sources reveal this isn't about revenge or settling old scores from their bitter divorce. Instead, those close to the respected producer say he's been deeply moved by Thomas Markle's deteriorating health and increasingly desperate attempts to reconcile with the daughter who has completely cut him out of her life. The same daughter who once called him every single day, who depended on him financially and emotionally throughout her struggling actress years, now treats him like he never existed. The timing couldn't be more catastrophic for Meghan. Just as she's attempting her final Netflix push with what many believe will be her last chance to prove her worth to the streaming giant, Trevor's potential bombshell threatens to expose the calculated cruelty that allegedly lies beneath her carefully curated public persona. Palace insiders suggest that even Harry remains unaware of the full extent of what Trevor witnessed during his marriage to Meghan, raising questions about just how much the Duke of Sussex really knows about the woman he married. What's particularly chilling about this developing story is the pattern it reveals. Jessica Mulroney, once Meghan's closest confidante, was brutally discarded the moment she became inconvenient. Nike Pretty, her childhood best friend, was similarly cast aside when she dared to question Meghan's treatment of Trevor. Now Thomas Markle, the man who sacrificed everything for his daughter's dreams, finds himself completely erased from her narrative while she profits from playing the victim card on the world stage. But Trevor Engleson represents something different entirely. He's not just another discarded friend or family member nursing wounds in private. He's a successful Hollywood producer with his own reputation to protect, someone who understands the media game better than most. Sources suggest he's been approached countless times over the years to share his story, always declining out of basic decency. Now, watching an elderly man's heart break in real time while his daughter builds her empire on tales of victimhood, Trevor's sense of justice has reportedly reached its breaking point. The entertainment industry is holding its breath, waiting to see what revelations might finally pierce through Meghan's seemingly impenetrable armor of victimhood and celebrity protection. What drove Trevor to this breaking point, and what secrets from their marriage could finally expose the real Meghan Markle? The truth about Meghan and Trevor's marriage has been carefully buried under layers of strategic silence and legal agreements, but cracks in that foundation are finally starting to show. What the public knows is sanitized Hollywood speak about two people growing apart, but those who witness the relationship up close paint a dramatically different picture of calculated manipulation and breathtaking cruelty. Trevor Engleson was everything Meghan thought she wanted in a husband when they married in 2011. He was an established producer with genuine connections in the entertainment industry, someone who could potentially open doors that had remained stubbornly closed throughout her struggling actress years. Friends from that time describe how Meghan would constantly pepper Trevor with questions about his projects, his contacts, and most tellingly, his timeline for launching her career into the stratosphere. But what started as ambitious partnership quickly devolved into something far more sinister. Those close to the couple during their brief marriage describe a woman who became increasingly frustrated with Trevor's inability to deliver the instant stardom she believed she deserved. The producer, by all accounts a decent man who genuinely loved his wife, found himself constantly walking on eggshells as Meghan's demands escalated and her patience evaporated. The breaking point allegedly came when Trevor secured Meghan her role on Suits, the cable drama that would finally give her steady work and modest recognition. Instead of gratitude, those familiar with the situation describe Meghan's reaction as cold calculation. She had gotten what she needed from the marriage, and Trevor's usefulness had expired. The way she ended their relationship has become the stuff of Hollywood legend, and not in a good way. Multiple entertainment industry veterans have confirmed the story that Meghan simply mailed her wedding rings back to Trevor while filming in Toronto, offering no explanation, no conversation, no basic human decency, just a package containing the symbols of their marriage vows, delivered like returned merchandise. For a man who had invested emotionally and professionally in their partnership, the cruelty was devastating. Even more disturbing are the allegations about how Meghan systematically erased Trevor from her narrative once she moved on. Friends who had known them as a couple suddenly found themselves pressured to choose sides, with Meghan making it clear that maintaining relationships with her ex-husband would result in permanent exile from her inner circle. The woman who now preaches about kindness and showing up for people demonstrated a chilling ability to compartmentalize and discard human connections the moment they no longer served her purposes. Trevor's silence in the years since their divorce has been interpreted by many as dignified restraint, but those closest to him suggest something far more complex. The producer has watched from the sidelines as his ex-wife built an empire on narratives of victimhood, all while knowing firsthand her capacity for emotional manipulation and calculated cruelty. But what specific incidents from their marriage could Trevor reveal that would shatter Meghan's carefully constructed public image forever? The heartbreaking reality of Thomas Markle's situation has become impossible to ignore, even for those who once dismissed him as merely collateral damage in Meghan's rise to global prominence. The man who sacrificed his financial security, his health, and ultimately his relationship with his grandchildren for his daughter's dreams now finds himself completely erased from her fairy tale narrative, replaced by carefully crafted stories of abandonment and betrayal that bear little resemblance to the truth. Thomas Markle's devotion to Meghan throughout her childhood and early career is well documented, though Meghan herself seems determined to rewrite that history. He funded her private school education, her Northwestern University tuition, and supported her financially during those lean years in Hollywood when acting jobs were scarce and rent was a constant worry. Friends from that era remember how Thomas would beam with pride when discussing Meghan's latest audition or small television role, convinced that his daughter's talent would eventually be recognized. The cruel irony is that Thomas Markle was arguably Meghan's most devoted supporter long before Prince Harry entered the picture. He worked grueling hours as a lighting director, often away from home for months at a time, specifically to ensure Meghan could pursue her acting dreams without the burden of student loans or financial stress. Those who knew the family during those years describe a father who genuinely believed his sacrifices were investments in his daughter's happiness and success. But watching Thomas navigate his current isolation reveals the devastating toll of Meghan's systematic erasure campaign. The man who once spoke to his daughter daily now hasn't heard her voice in years. He's been denied any relationship with his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, despite repeated attempts to reach out through intermediaries and public appeals. The grandfather, who should be sharing bedtime stories and holiday traditions, has been relegated to learning about his grandchildren's milestones through tabloid photographs and carefully staged social media posts. What makes Thomas's situation particularly tragic is his deteriorating health and advancing age. At 79, he's dealing with serious medical issues while simultaneously grappling with the emotional devastation of losing his daughter completely. Recent reports suggest his health scares have been exacerbated by the stress of his estrangement from Meghan, creating a vicious cycle where his attempts to reconcile become more desperate as his physical condition worsens. The few interviews Thomas has given paint a picture of a man genuinely confused about how their relationship deteriorated so completely. He's repeatedly expressed regret about the paparazzi staging incident before the royal wedding, acknowledging his mistakes while desperately hoping for forgiveness and reconciliation. But Meghan's response has been radio silence, punctuated only by carefully leaked stories portraying him as a manipulative figure seeking attention and financial gain. Those who know Thomas personally describe a man wrestling with profound guilt, constantly questioning whether he somehow failed as a father to deserve such complete rejection. The psychological warfare of being systematically erased from your child's life while watching them prosper publicly is taking its toll on his mental and physical well-being. Could Trevor's intimate knowledge of how Meghan operates finally provide Thomas with the validation he desperately needs? Trevor Engleson possesses something that makes palace handlers and Meghan's crisis management team break into cold sweats: first-hand knowledge of how she operates when the cameras aren't rolling. Unlike the carefully curated relationships she maintains now, Trevor witnessed Meghan during her most vulnerable and unguarded moments before she perfected the art of public manipulation and victim narratives that have become her trademark. The Hollywood producer's unique perspective stems from experiencing Meghan's behavioral patterns during their marriage, long before she had royal status to hide behind or a global platform to control her narrative. Industry insiders who knew them as a couple describe how Trevor became increasingly disturbed by Meghan's treatment of service workers, her explosive reactions to perceived slights, and most damaging of all, her chilling ability to completely cut people out of her life without explanation or remorse. Perhaps most devastating for Meghan's current image rehabilitation efforts is Trevor's intimate knowledge of how she discussed her family during their marriage. Friends from that era recall dinner parties where Trevor would look visibly uncomfortable as Meghan made disparaging comments about Thomas Markle's financial situation, his appearance, or his perceived social inadequacies. The woman who now claims to champion authenticity and kindness allegedly spent years expressing embarrassment about her father's blue-collar background while simultaneously benefiting from his financial support. Trevor also witnessed Meghan's relationship with her half-siblings during a time when she maintained contact with them, before they became convenient villains in her royal fairy tale. Those close to the former couple remember Meghan speaking fondly of Samantha and Thomas Jr. during holiday gatherings, making her subsequent character assassination of them particularly jarring for those who knew the truth about their family dynamics. What makes Trevor's potential revelations particularly explosive is his professional understanding of how narrative manipulation works in Hollywood. Unlike Thomas Markle, who stumbles through media interviews with genuine emotion and confusion, Trevor understands exactly how Meghan constructs her public persona. He's watched her practice emotional responses, craft strategic tears, and perfect the art of playing victim, while simultaneously destroying anyone who threatens her carefully constructed image. The producer's knowledge extends beyond just family dynamics to Meghan's early networking strategies and social climbing techniques. Entertainment industry veterans remember how Meghan would use Trevor's connections shamelessly, often dropping his name to secure meetings or opportunities, then minimizing his role once she achieved her goals. This pattern of using and discarding people would later become her signature move, but Trevor witnessed it in its early developmental stages. Perhaps most damning of all is Trevor's awareness of Meghan's long-term planning and calculated decision-making. He allegedly watched her research potential targets for advancement, study their weaknesses and desires, then position herself accordingly. The same strategic thinking she would later apply to pursuing Prince Harry was apparently refined and perfected during their marriage, with Trevor serving as both witness and occasional unwitting accomplice. What specific examples of Meghan's manipulative behavior could Trevor reveal that would finally expose her true character? The entertainment industry operates on reputation, relationships, and unspoken codes of conduct that govern how business gets done behind closed doors. In this world where image is everything and second chances are rare, Trevor Engleson has maintained an enviable reputation as someone who honors his commitments, treats people with respect, and keeps his word. Meghan Markle, by contrast, has become something of a cautionary tale whispered about in executive suites and industry gatherings. Hollywood insiders who worked with both during their marriage describe a stark contrast in how they conducted themselves professionally. Trevor was known for his collaborative approach, his reliability in meetings, and his genuine interest in developing long-term working relationships. Meghan, even before achieving global fame, was already developing a reputation for being difficult, demanding, and quick to blame others when projects didn't meet her expectations. Entertainment executives who dealt with Meghan during her Suits years paint a picture of someone who viewed every interaction as a potential stepping stone rather than a genuine professional relationship. Multiple casting directors have shared similar stories about Meghan's behavior during auditions, describing an actress who seemed more interested in networking and name-dropping than actually demonstrating her craft. The consensus among many was that her ambition far outweighed her talent. What's particularly damaging for Meghan's current brand rehabilitation efforts is how consistently these negative impressions have been shared within industry circles. Unlike the carefully managed media narrative she controls now, Hollywood operates on word-of-mouth recommendations and personal relationships. When someone develops a reputation for being untrustworthy or difficult to work with, that reputation tends to stick and spread organically through professional networks. Trevor's continued respect within the industry stands in sharp contrast to the skepticism that often greets Meghan's various business ventures. When he announces new projects, they're taken seriously by financiers and distributors. When Meghan launches another lifestyle initiative, the response is often eye-rolling and speculation about how long before it fails. This credibility gap reflects years of different approaches to building professional relationships. Several prominent agents and managers have privately expressed amazement at how thoroughly Meghan has burned bridges in Hollywood, particularly considering her later royal connections should have opened unprecedented doors. Instead, many describe an actress turned royal who seemed to view her entertainment industry background as something to be escaped rather than leveraged professionally. The woman who should have been Hollywood royalty chose instead to alienate the very people who could have made her dreams come true. The whispers about Meghan's treatment of Trevor during their divorce have never fully disappeared from industry conversations. Hollywood may forgive many sins, but the casual cruelty of mailing back wedding rings without explanation crossed a line that many found unforgivable. In an industry where personal relationships often determine professional success, such behavior marked her as someone to approach with extreme caution. How will Trevor's industry credibility amplify the impact of his potential revelations about Meghan's true character? The transformation of Trevor Engleson from silent observer to potential whistleblower didn't happen overnight. Those close to the producer describe a gradual shift in his perspective as he watched Thomas Markle's health deteriorate while enduring years of public humiliation and private heartbreak. What finally pushed Trevor toward action was reportedly witnessing the elderly man increasingly desperate attempts to connect with grandchildren he's never been allowed to meet. Entertainment industry colleagues note that Trevor has been approached countless times over the years by publishers, journalists, and documentary filmmakers eager to hear his side of the Meghan story. His consistent refusal to participate in tell-all projects or revenge narratives earned him respect throughout Hollywood, where bitter ex-spouse exposés are common currency. But his motivation now appears fundamentally different from typical celebrity score settling. Friends close to Trevor reveal that his decision to potentially break his silence stems from a genuine belief that Thomas Markle deserves basic human dignity in his final years. The producer has allegedly been deeply affected by reports of Thomas's health scares and his emotional deterioration, viewing the situation through the lens of someone who also experienced Meghan's capacity for complete emotional cutoff. The difference is that Trevor was able to rebuild his life and move forward, while Thomas remains trapped in a cycle of public humiliation and private grief. The protection plan reportedly involves more than just sharing personal anecdotes from their marriage. Trevor has allegedly been consulting with legal experts about the most effective way to present evidence of patterns of behavior without violating any existing agreements or exposing himself to litigation. This methodical approach reflects his professional background and suggests any eventual revelations would be carefully documented rather than emotional outbursts. What makes Trevor's potential intervention particularly powerful is his lack of obvious self-interest. Unlike other Markle family members who have been dismissed as attention-seeking or financially motivated, Trevor has his own successful career and reputation to protect. His decision to risk potential backlash suggests a moral conviction that transcends personal grievances or professional calculations. Industry insiders suggest Trevor has been quietly building support among mutual acquaintances who witnessed Meghan's behavior during their marriage. This network of potential corroborating witnesses could provide the credibility that previous Markle family revelations have lacked. When multiple independent witnesses share similar observations about someone's character, it becomes much harder to dismiss their accounts as biased or fabricated. The timing of Trevor's apparent decision coincides with growing public skepticism about Meghan's victim narratives and increasing sympathy for Thomas Markle's situation. This cultural shift provides a more receptive environment for revelations that might have been dismissed or ignored during the peak of Meghan's popularity following her royal wedding. What evidence has Trevor been quietly assembling, and how might it finally give Thomas Markle the vindication he desperately seeks? Behind the carefully curated Instagram posts and polished Netflix promotional materials, Meghan Markle is reportedly in full crisis mode as whispers about Trevor's potential bombshell revelations reach her inner circle. Those familiar with her current situation describe a woman frantically trying to control a narrative that's threatening to spiral completely beyond her management, with Trevor representing the one variable she never fully accounted for in her damage control strategies. The panic isn't just about what Trevor might reveal, but about the credibility he brings to any potential accusations. Unlike her estranged family members who have been systematically discredited through media campaigns, Trevor represents an entirely different category of threat. His success in Hollywood, his maintained reputation for integrity, and most importantly, his years of restraint make him virtually impossible to dismiss as a bitter ex seeking attention or financial gain. Hollywood insiders describe Meghan's team reaching out through back channels, attempting to gauge Trevor's intentions and explore potential agreements that might keep him silent. These efforts have reportedly been met with polite but firm rejection, suggesting that whatever moral conviction has driven Trevor to this point won't be easily swayed by financial considerations or legal pressure. The producer appears to have moved beyond the reach of traditional celebrity damage control tactics. What's particularly alarming for Meghan's camp is the timing of these developments. Her Netflix holiday special represents what many industry observers consider her final opportunity to prove her value to the streaming giant. The last thing she needs during this crucial period is a credible voice from her past, contradicting the carefully constructed narrative of victimhood and authenticity that forms the foundation of her current brand. The mounting pressure is reportedly affecting Meghan's behavior in ways that those around her find increasingly difficult to manage. Staff members describe someone who has become paranoid about media coverage, obsessively monitoring entertainment industry publications for any mention of Trevor or hints about potential revelations. This hypervigilance is creating an atmosphere of tension that's beginning to affect even her most carefully staged public appearances. Perhaps most troubling for her team is Meghan's apparent inability to craft an effective preemptive response strategy. Her usual tactics of playing victim or attacking the credibility of her accusers simply won't work against someone like Trevor, who has maintained dignity and silence throughout their divorce and its aftermath. This forces her into unfamiliar territory where she can't control the narrative through manipulation or legal threats. The situation has reportedly created friction even within her immediate circle, with some advisors pushing for a conciliatory approach toward Thomas Markle that might undermine Trevor's motivation for speaking out. However, Meghan's apparent unwillingness to consider reconciliation with her father suggests she's still confident in her ability to weather whatever storm Trevor might create. But can Meghan's crisis management skills overcome the devastating credibility gap between her victim narratives and Trevor's potential first-hand accounts? The convergence of Trevor's potential revelations with Meghan's desperate Netflix finale represents a perfect storm of catastrophic timing that couldn't have been orchestrated more devastatingly if it had been planned. Industry analysts are calling it the ultimate test of whether Meghan's carefully constructed brand can survive genuine scrutiny from someone who knew her before she learned to weaponize victimhood as a career strategy. Netflix executives are reportedly growing increasingly nervous about their association with Meghan as rumors about Trevor's intentions circulate through Hollywood. The streaming giant has already invested heavily in her holiday special, positioning it as a potential franchise launcher that could justify the remainder of her lucrative contract. The prospect of damaging revelations emerging just as they're promoting her lifestyle brand represents a public relations nightmare that could overshadow any positive coverage the show might generate. What makes the timing particularly devastating is how it undermines the core message Meghan is trying to sell through her Netflix content. The holiday special is built around themes of family, forgiveness, and authentic connection, values that ring hollow when contrasted with her treatment of Trevor and Thomas Markle. If Trevor chooses to speak out during the promotional cycle, every interview and media appearance becomes an opportunity for journalists to ask uncomfortable questions about the gap between her public messaging and private behavior. The entertainment industry has been watching Meghan's Netflix journey with increasing skepticism, particularly after the lukewarm reception of previous projects and growing questions about her ability to deliver content that justifies her massive contract. Trevor's potential bombshell represents the kind of credibility crisis that could provide Netflix with the justification they need to quietly distance themselves from future collaborations once her current obligations are fulfilled. Perhaps most damaging is how the timing exposes the calculated nature of Meghan's brand rehabilitation efforts. Her holiday special, with its emphasis on domestic bliss and seasonal traditions, appears increasingly manipulative when viewed against the backdrop of a father she refuses to acknowledge and an ex-husband whose silence she has taken for granted. The contrast between her public persona and private behavior becomes impossible to ignore. Marketing experts suggest that no amount of crisis management can overcome the kind of narrative disruption that credible revelations from Trevor could create. Unlike previous controversies that Meghan has weathered through strategic victim playing and media manipulation, this situation involves someone with the credibility and insider knowledge to systematically dismantle her carefully constructed image. The proximity to the holiday season adds another layer of irony to the potential timing. While Meghan attempts to position herself as an authority on family traditions and seasonal celebration, the specter of Trevor's revelations serves as a constant reminder of the relationships she has destroyed and the people she has discarded in her relentless pursuit of fame and status. Could this perfect storm of timing finally expose the calculated cruelty behind Meghan's public facade of kindness and authenticity? The potential fallout from Trevor's revelations extends far beyond Meghan's personal brand, threatening to create unprecedented complications for the British royal family at a time when they can least afford another scandal. Palace insiders are reportedly monitoring the situation with growing alarm, recognizing that credible accusations about Meghan's character could reignite questions about Harry's judgment and the monarchy's vetting processes that allowed such a problematic figure into their inner circle. King Charles finds himself in an impossible position as these developments unfold. Any public response to Trevor's potential revelations risks drawing the monarchy deeper into what should remain a private family matter, yet complete silence could be interpreted as tacit acknowledgement of the accusations. The delicate balance the palace has maintained since Harry and Meghan's departure becomes increasingly difficult to sustain when faced with credible testimony about behavior patterns that predate her royal involvement. For Prince William and Catherine, the timing couldn't be more politically sensitive. Their carefully planned Australia tour and Catherine's Christmas carol service represent crucial opportunities to showcase the monarchy's future in positive, family-oriented contexts. Trevor's revelations about Meghan's treatment of family members creates an uncomfortable contrast that undermines their messaging about royal values and authentic service to others. Perhaps most concerning for palace strategists is how Trevor's credibility makes it impossible to dismiss his potential accusations as jealous ex-family members seeking attention or financial gain. His professional success, maintained dignity throughout their divorce, and lack of obvious financial motivation for speaking out now creates exactly the kind of witness that royal protection strategies struggle to counter effectively. The entertainment industry is holding its collective breath as Trevor Engleson reportedly finalizes preparations for what could become the most devastating celebrity expose in recent memory. Unlike the typical Hollywood tell-all designed for maximum shock value and book sales, Those familiar with Trevor's approach describe a methodical, evidence-based presentation that could systematically dismantle years of carefully constructed narratives about Meghan's character and motivations. Legal experts suggest that Trevor's team has been meticulously reviewing any confidentiality agreements or non-disclosure clauses that might limit his ability to speak freely about his marriage to Meghan. The fact that he's apparently moving forward indicates either that no such restrictions exist, or that his legal counsel has found ways to navigate around them without exposing him to litigation risks. This suggests a level of preparation that goes far beyond impulsive revenge-seeking. What makes the approaching revelations particularly ominous for Meghan's camp is the reported breadth of Trevor's planned disclosures. Entertainment industry insiders suggest he's prepared to address not just their relationship dynamics, but also her treatment of family members, staff, and professional colleagues during their time together. This comprehensive approach could provide the missing context that explains the pattern of burned bridges and discarded relationships that has characterized her entire adult life. The potential impact extends beyond immediate damage to Meghan's brand rehabilitation efforts. If Trevor's revelations prove as credible and damaging as anticipated, they could trigger a domino effect of other former friends and colleagues finding the courage to share their own experiences. The protective silence that has surrounded many of Meghan's past relationships might finally crack once someone with Trevor's credibility breaks the ice. Perhaps most significantly, Trevor's motivation appears to be reaching beyond personal vindication towards something approaching a moral crusade. His reported determination to defend Thomas Markle's reputation and expose the cruelty of his treatment suggests someone prepared to weather whatever backlash Meghan's crisis management team might orchestrate. This kind of moral conviction is notoriously difficult to counter with traditional celebrity damage control tactics. The timing of any eventual revelations remains carefully guarded, but industry observers note that maximum impact would likely coincide with Meghan's most vulnerable promotional moments. Whether that means disrupting her Netflix holiday special launch or waiting for an even more strategically damaging moment, Trevor appears to hold all the cards in determining when and how this story unfolds. For Thomas Markle, the approaching revelations represent the first real hope for vindication he's had since being systematically erased from his daughter's narrative. The validation that comes from someone of Trevor's credibility confirming his account of Meghan's character could finally provide the elderly man with some measure of peace in what may be his final years. Will Trevor's revelations finally shatter Meghan's carefully constructed image and provide the truth that victims of her manipulation have been desperately seeking? Drop your thoughts below about whether Trevor Engleson will finally expose the real Meghan Markle. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.